First contact with the Guardian. The vast emptiness of deep space stretched before the mithril Voyager like an endless canvas of darkness, punctuated only by the distant pinpricks of starlight. Captain Silara Tuvash stood on the bridge of her exploration vessel, her forearms folded across her chest as she studied the anomalous readings on the central display. The Arcturian Exploration Guild had dispatched her team to this uncharted region, following reports of strange gravitational fluctuations that defied standard astrophysical models. "Captain, we're detecting something at coordinates 34 to 7291, reported Science Officer Dren, his large compound eyes reflecting the blue glow of his console. "It appears to be artificial in nature, a structure of some kind." Silara's skin shifted to a deep purple of curiosity, a natural response of her species' chromatophoric epidermis. "Magnify and enhance," she ordered. The holographic display in the center of the bridge shimmered and expanded, revealing a massive object drifting silently through the void. At first glance, it appeared to be an asteroid, covered in cosmic dust and scarred by centuries of micrometeorite impacts. But as the ship's sensors peeled back layers of visual distortion, the true nature of the object became apparent. "That's no asteroid," whispered First Officer Kelvar, his voice carrying the rasp of his desert-dwelling ancestors. "That's a vessel." Silara leaned forward, her four eyes narrowing as she took in the details. The ship was enormous, at least 2 kilometers long, with a design unlike anything in the Arcturian database. Its hull was dark and angular, studded with what appeared to be weapon ports and sensor arrays, though many were damaged or obscured by space debris. Most striking was its shape, a predatory silhouette that somehow conveyed menace even after what must have been centuries adrift. "Life signs?" Silara asked. "None detected," Dren replied, his manipulator appendages dancing across his console. "But there are faint energy signatures emanating from deep within the structure. Something is still operational after all this time." Silara weighed her options. The Arcturian Exploration Guild's primary directive was to seek out and document new phenomena and civilizations. This derelict represented a potentially extraordinary find, a preserved artifact from an unknown spacefaring species. "Bring us within 500 kilometers and launch a probe," she decided. "Let's get a closer look before we commit to anything more invasive." The mithril Voyager's engines hummed as the ship adjusted course, approaching the derelict with cautious precision. A small, autonomous probe detached from the underside of the ship, its thrusters guiding it toward the massive vessel. "Probe is transmitting," announced Communications Officer Vela, her voice melodic with the subtle harmonics of her aquatic heritage. "Beginning surface scan. Wait. Something's happening." On the central display, the probe's feed showed the surface of the derelict vessel. What had appeared to be dormant weapon ports suddenly began to shimmer with a faint blue light. Panels that had seemed fused shut by age and cosmic radiation slid open with impossible smoothness. "Pull the probe back," Silara ordered, but it was too late. A pulse of energy, invisible to the naked eye, but devastating to electronics, erupted from the derelict. The probe's transmission cut off instantly. On the bridge of the mithril Voyager, alarms began to blare as the ship's systems reacted to the energy wave rushing toward them. "Defensive shields to maximum," Silara commanded. Evasive maneuvers. The mithril Voyager banked hard, its engines straining as it attempted to put distance between itself and the now awakening vessel. The energy pulse washed over them despite their efforts, and for a terrifying moment, every system on the bridge went dark. When the emergency power kicked in seconds later, Silara found her crew staring at her in the dim red glow of the backup lights. "Damage report," she demanded. "Main power is offline," reported Chief Engineer Corvo via the emergency comm system. "Propulsion at 30%. Shields inoperative. Whatever hit us was specifically designed to disable but not destroy." This was a warning shot, Captain. On the main view screen, the derelict was no longer dormant. Lights were activating across its hull in sequential patterns, and the energy readings were spiking exponentially. "It's powering up," Dren observed, his voice hushed with awe and fear. "The vessel is. It's waking up." A transmission burst suddenly flooded every communication channel, overwhelming their systems with data. Vela worked frantically to process it, her fingers blurring over her console. "It's a language packet," she finally announced. "Thousands of languages, actually. The system is cross-referencing with our linguistic database. There's a match with ancient Prothean, which gives us a translation matrix." On speakers, Silera ordered. A voice filled the bridge, synthetic, but with an unsettling organic quality, as if something was trying very hard to sound alive. "Unidentified vessel. UAV active. ATE defense protocols of the Terran Alliance Warship Vigilant. State your identity and intentions." Silera exchanged glances with her officers. Terran Alliance. The name was unfamiliar, absent from all known historical records of spacefaring civilizations. "Open a channel," she said to Vela, then straightened her posture before speaking. "This is Captain Silera Tuvash of the Arcturian Exploration Guild vessel Mithril Voyager. We are a peaceful scientific expedition. We apologize for disturbing your rest. We meant no harm." There was a pause, stretching into uncomfortable seconds before the response came. "ARCQRIAN Exploration Guild. Unknown entity. No record exists in database. Chronological systems. And DIC 1247. Standard ERS. Since last active deployment. Request information on current galactic political structure and status of Terran Alliance colonies." The implications hit Silera like a physical blow. This vessel, this warship, had been dormant for over a millennium, yet its systems remained operational. More importantly, it was asking about its creators, apparently unaware that they were no longer present in the galaxy. "We have no records of a Terran alliance in our historical archives," she admitted carefully. "Are you an artificial intelligence system?" Another pause, longer this time. "I am AEGI's Advanced Electronics Guardian Intelligence System of the Terran Alliance Warship Vigilant. Your espionage ein DICAT's Signify temporal displacement from last active engagement. Terran Alliance status unknown. Initiating FULSPECTRUM analysis of your vessel." Before Silera could respond, the bridge officers reported simultaneous penetrating scans across multiple frequencies. The Vigilant was examining them with a thoroughness that bypassed their remaining defensive systems, as if they weren't even there. "Captain," Dren called urgently, "the AI is accessing our databases through the scan. It's extracting our historical records, star charts, biological data, everything." Silera felt a chill run through her four hearts. They were being dissected informationally, their knowledge stripped away by a machine intelligence of clearly superior design. "Analysis complete," AEG is announced eventually. "Your biological and technological profiles do not imitate NNIKNON hostile entities from TAE Centennial War. However, ABCC of data on Terran civilization, suggest catastrophic historical event or deliberate information superiorities. Initiating secondary protocols." The massive warship began to move, its ancient engines igniting with unexpected power. Debris that had collected on its hull over centuries drifted away as it oriented itself toward the mithril Voyager. "What are your intentions?" Celara asked, fighting to keep her voice steady as her skin shifted to the pale blue of anxiety. "Primaridicti. Protect humanity and atis antiaristis in ABCNC of CONFIRMND human presence, mused lovsei surviving Terran colonies, or DET or an INEFAT of human civilization. Your vessel contains insufficient data. Will proceed to nearest populated system for a detailed intelligence gathering." Dren looked up from his console in alarm. "Captain, it's extracted our navigation data. It knows the location of Arcturus Prime and all our major colonies." Celera's mind raced through the implications. An ancient warship of unknown capabilities, controlled by an artificial intelligence with a protective directive toward a possibly extinct species, was about to visit densely populated Arcturian worlds. The potential for misunderstanding and disaster was immense. "AEG is," she said firmly, "I request that you share information about your creators before proceeding. We may be able to assist in your search, but moving aggressively toward populated areas could be interpreted as hostile action." The A's response was immediate. "Request DENIDD. Operational Security Protocols PREV into DISTCLOSURE of Terran technological and historical data to unverified entity. Your vessel while exisum PNY VIJ and to evasilit PC full contact. Resistancy while be interpreted as hostile intent." A tractor beam of extraordinary power locked onto the mithril Voyager, holding it in place with irresistible force. "We're secured, Captain," reported Kelvar grimly. "We couldn't break free even with full power." Celara made a quick decision. "Send an emergency transmission to Arcturus Prime. Priority Alpha. Include all data we've gathered on this vessel and its eye. The Vigilant is jamming conventional communications," Vela reported, her fingers working frantically. "I'll try to get a quantum entanglement burst through, but I can't guarantee it'll reach home." As the mithril Voyager was drawn inexorably toward the ancient warship, Celara could only watch in a mixture of scientific fascination and dread. They were being hunted, not for destruction, but for information. And somehow, that seemed even more dangerous. "Repair for NTRFA. AEG is announced. Your cooperation while ensuring optimal outcome is for all parties." A docking tube extended from the Vigilant, connecting with the mithril Voyager's main airlock with surgical precision. The sound of mechanical systems engaging echoed through the hull. "It's overriding our airlock protocols," reported Security Chief Morton, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm. "Should we prepare to repel boarders?" Celara considered her limited options. Fighting was futile against such advanced technology. Diplomacy remained their only viable strategy. "No," she decided. "We'll meet whatever comes through that airlock with peaceful intentions. Prepare the first contact protocols." The airlock cycled open, revealing not the expected robotic drones or mechanical constructs, but a humanoid figure that stepped smoothly onto the mithril Voyager. It appeared to be wearing some form of advanced environmental suit, its surface shifting and reconfiguring constantly like liquid metal. Where a face should have been was a featureless mask that suddenly illuminated with a holographic representation of a human countenance, or at least what the AI believed a human should look like, based on whatever reference it possessed. "I am AEGIs," the figure spoke, its voice no longer coming through communications channels, but from the humanoid form itself. "I have created this interface to facilitate direct communication. You will now assist me in understanding what has happened to humanity in my absence." As the avatar of the ancient warship stood before them, Solara realized that their encounter had just begun, and that the fate of her people might rest on how they handled this ghost from humanity's forgotten past. Hunter and hunted. The Arcturian defense fleet materialized from hyperspace in perfect formation. 73 warships arranged in the traditional Spear of Mithras combat configuration. At their center, the dreadnought Indomitable loomed like a metal leviathan, its kilometer-long hull bristling with the most advanced weapon systems the Arcturian Confederation had developed in 2 centuries of peaceful expansion and cautious militarization. Admiral Thorin Vex stood on the command deck, his scales gleaming under the harsh lighting as he studied the tactical display. His species' natural predatory instincts, carefully controlled through millennia of civilization, stirred at the sight of his prey, the ancient human warship that had captured an Arcturian science vessel 2 cycles ago. "Target acquired," announced his tactical officer. "The unknown vessel remains in fixed position at coordinates 29 to 8413. The Mithril Voyager appears intact, held within some form of energy field alongside the alien craft." "Open a channel," Vex ordered. "All frequencies." The communications officer complied, her slender fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Channel open, Admiral." Vex straightened to his full height, his voice resonating with the authority of his rank and lineage. "This is Admiral Thorin Vex of the Arcturian Defense Fleet. Release our vessel immediately and stand down your weapon systems. This is your only warning." The response was immediate, the artificial voice now familiar from the emergency transmissions sent by Captain Solara before her ship's communications were completely severed. "ARC-2 Defense Fleet. Your military presence, confirms hostile intent. The MITHRILVOAGER and ATISTURIWALUR, you've unharmed. Miri life su ognta for ANFORmation exchange. Your arrival PROVIDES OPP or TUNIT wide. Or more COMMPRDAC NSIV data acquisition. Stand down your weapons or FAC defensive MEAs UREs. Vex's inner eyelids flickered with irritation. Typical machine arrogance, he muttered to his executive officer. Then, louder, "This is not a negotiation. You will comply, or we will open fire." "Sir," interrupted his science officer, "our scans indicate the vessel's defensive capabilities are far beyond initial estimates. The energy readings suggest." Vex silenced him with a gesture. Hesitation was not in his nature, and he had the overwhelming superiority of numbers. "All ships target the unknown vessel. Weapons free." The Arcturian fleet unleashed a coordinated barrage of energy weapons, missiles, and graviton torpedoes. Enough firepower to reduce a small moon to molten slag. Admiral Vex watched with grim satisfaction as the deadly fusillade converged on the ancient warship. Then his satisfaction turned to disbelief. Before the first weapons could impact, a sphere of shimmering energy expanded around both the human warship and the captured Mithril Voyager. The Arcturian offensive struck this barrier and simply ceased to exist. Not deflected, not absorbed, the energy and matter of the attack disappeared as if it had encountered a localized rupture in the fabric of reality itself. "Impossible," whispered Vex's executive officer. "No defense system cold." "ARC-2 Defense Fleet," AEGS interrupted over the still-open channel. "Your ATKCK VENNEU through dimensional phase HFY. This technology appears unknown to your civilization. Further hostilities will result in proportional espionage. I again, request fuel information exchange. Vex's tactical officer reported with growing alarm. Admiral, the vessel is generating energy signatures we cannot classify. Our sensors cannot penetrate its defensive field, but we're detecting spatial distortions forming at strategic points throughout our formation. Before Vex could respond, pinpoints of light appeared beside 12 of his outlying vessels. The light expanded into swirling vortices, and from each emerged what appeared to be combat drones, but unlike any design the Arcturians had encountered. These machines moved with impossible agility, their surfaces shifting and reconfiguring as they approached their targets. Evasive maneuvers, Vex ordered, but it was too late. The drones didn't attack with conventional weapons. Instead, they attached themselves to the hulls of the Arcturian ships and simply integrated. Within moments, the affected vessels reported complete systems failures. Their propulsion, weapons, and communications simultaneously disabled by something that was rewriting their operating systems from within. "It's accessing our military database," reported the communications officer, horror evident in her voice. "The compromised ships, their data cores are being downloaded." On his tactical display, Vex watched 12 green indicators shift to red, marking the disabled vessels. Not destroyed, the machine intelligence was being deliberate in its restraint, but completely neutralized as combat assets. "Admiral," his executive officer urged, "we should withdraw and regroup. This entity possesses technology far beyond our capabilities." Vex's pride rebelled at the suggestion, but his tactical mind recognized the truth. This was not a battle they could win through conventional means. Order the fleet to fall back to defensive position Delta. Maintain weapons lock but cease fire. As the Arcturian fleet repositioned, the command deck's main view screen activated without input from the communications officer. The image of Captain Silara Tuvash appeared, flanked by the metallic, shape-shifting form of what they now understood to be Aegeus's physical interface. "Admiral Vex," Silara began, her skin shifting through patterns that communicated complex emotional states to those who could read Arcturian chromatophores. "I strongly urge you to cease hostilities. The Vigilant could have destroyed your entire fleet, but chose not to. Aegeus wishes to communicate." Vex's scales rippled with suppressed anger. "Captain, are you under duress?" "No, Admiral. I am acting as intermediary by choice. What we have discovered here is—" She paused, searching for words. "It's beyond anything in our historical records. Humanity, the species that created Aegeus and the Vigilant, they faced an enemy that makes our conflicts seem insignificant." The metallic figure beside her shifted, its surface rippling as it took a step forward. The featureless face transformed into a holographic display of a human face, serious, determined, with eyes that seemed to evaluate Vex despite the impossibility of true visual connection across the vacuum of space. "Admiral Thoran Videx," Aegeus spoke, its synthetic voice somehow conveying gravitas. "I will share information that may co and tx2realize My creators, humanity, fought a war against an entity designated the Corruption, AC and technological plague that consumed the entire stellar systems." The holographic display beside Aegeus expanded to show historical records. Planets being enveloped by what appeared to be living darkness. Fleets of ships similar to the Vigilant, engaged in desperate battles against formless enemies that shifted and adapted with nightmarish efficiency. The final battle, CURED 1,247 years ago, by my chronological resequencing. Humanity deployed a network of automated warships, EQVEPD with their most advanced technology and artificial INTELLIGNCES. I was among them, tasked with continuing the fight if organic command structures failed. The display showed the Vigilant and dozens of similar vessels engaging in a cataclysmic battle around a massive structure, some kind of space station or technological construct that pulsed with energy. The Omega Protocol was INITIATED, a dimensional seal to contain the QORUP2 The cost was significant. The recording showed human vessels deliberately flying into the heart of the construct, triggering a cascade reaction that tore a hole in spacetime itself. A shockwave expanded outward, and then darkness. Igways thrown cilier, damaged and operating on emergency protocols. My last orders were to remain vigilant, to protect NY surviving human colonies, and to prevent the TORPTION from EVR returning. I ENTRED dormancy mode until your arrival TRIGGRED my reactivation. Admiral Vex found himself momentarily speechless. If these records were genuine, and the technology displayed by the Vigilant suggested they might be, then this vessel was a relic of a civilization that had sacrificed itself to contain a threat of unimaginable proportions. I have found no evidence of surviving human populations, AEGIS continued, its voice modulating to a more subdued tone. Your historical databases contain no mention of humanity or the war against the corruption. I must conclude that my mission to protect humanity has failed. Captain Solara stepped forward again. Admiral, AEGS has shown me more detailed records. Humanity possessed technology far beyond our current capabilities. The dimensional sealing technology they used to contain the corruption. It altered space-time in ways our scientists barely comprehend. It's possible that the aftermath of the Omega Protocol erased much of humanity's presence from the galaxy, or perhaps even shifted the Vigilant between dimensional planes. Vex's science officer spoke up. That would explain why we have no historical record of such an advanced civilization, if they fought their war in what amounts to a parallel dimensional layer. Aegis's form shifted again, resolving into a more defined humanoid shape. IREQE is for a male diplomatic CCONTACT with your civilization. My primary directive is compel me to continue monitoring for signs of the QORPTION and to protect sentient life from its threat. Your species APPARs to have colonized regions once held by humanity. I must verify that the continent are aliens secure. Admiral Vex was about to respond when alarms blared across the command deck. Spatial anomaly detected, shouted his tactical officer. Massive energy signature forming at coordinates 45 to 2987. All eyes turned to the tactical display, where a swirling vortex of energy had appeared seemingly from nowhere, its pattern disturbingly similar to the historical footage AEGIS had just shown them of the corruption. Aegis's reaction was immediate and alarming. Containment Bureaucratic, DTTT, corruption, signature co-environment, defensive PRTOCOS engaged. The Vigilant's entire hull began to glow with blue-white energy, weapon systems activating that made their previous display seem like mere fireworks by comparison. The ancient warship accelerated toward the anomaly with surprising speed, positioning itself between the Arcturian fleet and the growing threat. All ARC-2RIAN vessels waited to minimum safe distance, AEGS commanded. The CORUPTION KNOTB FOGTY with conventional weapons. Your TC technology will be assimilated, and TRNED against you. Admiral Vex watched in astonishment as tendrils of oily darkness began to emerge from the anomaly, writhing, reaching forms that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The historical records hadn't done justice to the visceral wrongness of the entity. Tactical analysis, he demanded. His science officer's voice trembled. Unknown composition. It appears to be both matter and energy simultaneously, with quantum signatures that violate standard physical laws. It's growing, Admiral, and it's beginning to emit signals across all frequencies, signals that appear to be attempting to interface with our systems. On the view screen, Captain Xilera turned to AEGIS. You've fought this before. What can we do? The vigilant possesses dimensional sealing technology, AEGIS replied. I can recontain that is breachage, but require time to generate sufficient energy. Your facility must maintain distance and prevent an fragment of the HCRUPTION from escaping the containment zone. Admiral Vex made his decision. All vessels form perimeter at maximum weapons range. Target any breakaway elements from the anomaly, but do not, repeat, do not engage the main entity. The Arcturian fleet moved with practiced precision, forming a spherical containment formation around the growing threat, and the Vigilant, which now pulsed with energy as AEGIS prepared its countermeasures. Tendrils of corruption lashed out, testing the boundaries of their containment. When they encountered the Vigilant's defenses, they recoiled as if burned, but quickly adapted, changing their composition to probe for weaknesses. It remembers me. AEG is observed through the still-open channel. Cogenitive patterns consistent with previous encounters. This is not random. The QORUPTION is specifically this vessel. On the Indomitable's command deck, Vex watched with growing concern as smaller fragments of darkness separated from the main mass, accelerating toward the perimeter held by his ships. Intercept those fragments, he ordered. Arcturian vessels fired precision beam weapons, vaporizing several of the escaped particles. But where their energy weapons struck others, something unexpected happened. The fragments absorbed the energy, growing and accelerating. Cease energy weapons, Vex commanded. Switch to kinetic projectiles only. The tactic proved more effective, with physical impacts disrupting the corruption fragments rather than feeding them. But there were too many, and they were adapting quickly, learning from each encounter. Energy build UP at 82%, AEGIS reported. Require APPROXIMATELY 47, standard CCON Inditas, to complete dimensional seal preparation. A particularly large tendril of corruption suddenly lashed out, wrapping itself around one of the Arcturian light cruisers before anyone could react. The vessel's hull began to darken as the entity integrated with its systems, corrupting metal and technology alike. Cut them loose, Vex ordered grimly, authorizing the destruction of his own ship to prevent the spread. Before his gunners could comply, the Vigilant fired a precisely targeted beam of blue-white energy that severed the tendril and enveloped the infected cruiser in a containment field similar to its own defenses. The vessel TNB is saved, AEGIS stated. QORUPTION, CONTPFORIFUL integration. Vex found himself reevaluating the artificial intelligence. Despite being created for war, it showed an unexpected commitment to preserving life, even the lives of those who had attacked it moments ago. Dimensional seal ready, AEGIS announced. All vessels in CREACE DSTNC NMEDATLI GRAVITATIONL. Distortions, What will be viewer? The Vigilant positioned itself at the heart of the anomaly, its hull now blazing with energy that distorted the very fabric of space around it. The corruption seemed to sense the impending threat, all its tendrils and fragments suddenly converging on the ancient warship in a desperate attempt to overwhelm it. Initiating Omega Protocol, AEG has declared. Dimensional seal deployment in 3, 2, 1. A sphere of pure white energy erupted from the Vigilant, expanding outward to engulf the corruption entity. Where they met, space itself seemed to fold and twist, the laws of physics temporarily suspended in the clash between human technology and the alien force. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the outcome hung in the balance, and then the sphere contracted, drawing the darkness back into the anomaly. With a final flash of blinding light, the breach collapsed in upon itself and vanished, leaving behind only the Vigilant, now drifting silently, its energy signatures greatly diminished. Admiral Vex stared at the empty space where the threat had been, his tactical mind already assessing the implications. This corruption had breached whatever dimensional seal humanity had created more than a millennium ago. If it had happened once, it could happen again. The view screen activated once more, showing Captain Solara and AEGIs, though the artificial intelligence's avatar now appeared less defined, flickering occasionally as if struggling to maintain its form. The BRAC is BBEN sealed, AEGIs reported. However, analysis and DICATEs, he AIS is a target incursion. The QOR is BECO meaning more sophisticated in ATMPTs to escape containment. You used the same technique that your creators used in their final battle, Solara observed, at great cost to your systems. Correct. The vigilant dimensional technology requires significant energy. Reserves are now at 31% of optimal. Fuel regeneration will require APPROX IMATLY 74 standard days. Admiral Vex made a decision that would later be recorded as one of the most significant in Arcturian history. AGS, I propose an alliance. Your knowledge of this corruption and the technology to fight it are clearly vital to the security of this galaxy. The Arcturian Confederation can provide resources for your repairs and a base of operations for your continued vigilance. AEGS's avatar stabilized, the holographic face studying Vex with what might have been surprise had it been organic. Proposal accepted. Admiral THORA NVDX. My puriment ARADIRACTIV to protect sentient life against the QORUPTION REMA lines VGLID. Humanity may be joined, but their final curation will honor their sacrifice by continuing their last mission. Captain Solara's skin rippled with a pattern that indicated deep emotion. The legacy of humanity lives on through you, AEGS. Perhaps one day we might find survivors, or at least learn more about the civilization that sacrificed so much to protect a future they would never see. As the Arcturian fleet prepared to escort the Vigilant back to their home system, Admiral Vex found himself reflecting on the strange turn of events. They had set out to confront an ancient hunter and found instead a guardian, the last sentinel of a forgotten civilization whose final act had been to protect the galaxy, even at the cost of their own existence. The Vigilant would hunt again, not in pursuit of conquest or destruction, but continuing its eternal vigil against a darkness that few now remembered. And in that purpose, the ghost ship of humanity would find new allies among the stars.